This is one of my favorite Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Wagner, the safety who won 4 Super Bowls in his time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He played 10 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the reason why this is one of my favorite stories ever of any player is because Mike Wagner came from Wauhawken, Illinois. From obscurity, he went to Western Illinois College to play for 10 years on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he has better stats than Troy Polamalu. I love this story. I love it. What Tom Brady is to offense in the 7th round, Mike Wagner is easily the equivalent to that on defense. And why isn't Mike Wagner in the NFL Hall of Fame? 4 Super Bowl rings. Let's look at a little bit of his stats. They didn't keep track of tackles, but what do we base defensive backs off doing? What do we base TJ Watt off doing? What makes TJ Watt a great player? Sacks. If he didn't get those sacks, we wouldn't talk about him, right? So that's how you have to look at Mike Wagner. Base that off interceptions. Mike Wagner had 36 career interceptions in 10 years. Troy Polamalu played 12 years in the NFL, and he had 32 interceptions. Let's look at fumble recoveries. Mike Wagner had 12 in his career. Troy Polamalu had 7. Forced fumbles. Mike Wagner only had 5, and Troy Polamalu had 14. But if you look at these numbers, Mike Wagner had better numbers than Troy Polamalu. And I don't want to see a lot of times you'll hear when it comes to Mike Wagner making the Hall of Fame, a lot of people will say, well, look at the team that Mike Wagner played on. Well, look at the team that Troy Polamalu played on. That's a legendary defense. And I'm going to have a counter argument to that. When you're on a legendary defense, that means you got 10 other players on that defense as capable as you to get to the football. So that shouldn't make your stats any less worthy. And we all remember Troy Polamalu against the Baltimore Ravens. He picks the ball off, runs it in for a touchdown, sends the Pittsburgh Steelers to a Super Bowl. And that's fine. Great play. Legendary play, will go down in history forever. But Mike Wagner, he picks the ball off against the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl 10, leads to a field goal, puts them up. Then he tips a pass that gets intercepted by Mel Blount, and it seals the game. So you have Troy Polamalu, who sent his team to the Super Bowl, and he played okay in those Super Bowls. But Mike Wagner, in his Super Bowls, he won the games for the Steelers. Obviously, it's a team game, but you see what I'm getting at. I love the Mike Wagner story. And when you hear about all the great defensive backs that have come out of the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously the people in Pittsburgh know who he is, the hardcore Pittsburgh fans. But I'm saying in the national media stage, who will we hear about automatically? Automatically, Troy Polamalu, Mel Blount, Rod Woodson, and rightfully so. Those are great, fantastic players. I'm not taking anything away from them. But Mike Wagner is an amazing, awesome player. And he came from total obscurity. An 11th round pick, number 268th in total. 4-time Super Bowl champion. First team All-Pro in 1973. Second team All-Pro in 1976. 2-time Pro Bowler in 1975 and 1976. NFL interceptions co-leader in 1973. Pittsburgh Steelers 50th anniversary team. Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Honor. Pittsburgh Pro Hall of Fame. But we can't get him in the National Football League Hall of Fame. He deserves to be there. Look, I know, well, we don't see the stats on tackles. Come on, guys. If you're getting 36 picks in your career, 12 fumble recoveries, 5 forced fumbles, you're not a slouch. You know how to play and you know how to tackle. He should be in the Hall of Fame, and his name should be mentioned with some of the greatest players to ever play safety in the entire NFL. And you never hear about him. Ever. Never. You don't hear about the guy. We can argue this all day. Your argument could be Troy Polamalu is head and shoulders above Mike Wagner. Well, the stats say different. The 4 Super Bowl rings compared to Troy's 2 say different. The amount of interceptions, Mike Wagner, 36 career interceptions in 10 years. Troy Polamalu played 12 years and only had 32. What do we base a safety off of? Picking the ball off, getting the ball back for your team. Mike Wagner was always around the football. The biggest play in all of football is not the sack. It's the interception. It gets your team the ball back. Biggest play in football. So Mike Wagner, Michael Robert Wagner, born June 22nd, 1949, is an American former professional football player who was a safety for 10 seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers of the National Football League. He played college football for the Western Illinois Leathernecks. He won 4 Super Bowls with the Steelers as a member of their famed Steel Curtain defense. Born in Waukegan, Illinois, Wagner graduated in 1967 from Carmel High School in Mundelein. He played college football at Western Illinois University, earning NAIA All-American status in 1969. He was added to the Western Illinois Athletics Hall of Fame in 1976. Wagner was selected by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 11th round of the 1971 NFL Draft, the 268th overall selection. First looked at as a wide receiver on offense, he was soon switched to defense as a safety. Wagner tied for the NFL lead with 8 interceptions in 1973, appeared in the 1975 and 1976 Pro Bowls, and recorded 36 career interceptions, 12 fumble recoveries. He won 4 Super Bowls, recording interceptions in Super Bowl 9, 10, and after 10 seasons with the Steelers, he retired in January of 1981. Now, that makes the story even more amazing. He showed up at Latrobe, and he was at wide receiver. It's not like Troy Polamalu, a first-round draft picks coming out of USC, or Mel Blount, or Rod Woodson, where these guys showed up in the camp, and they were already defensive backs. This makes this story even more amazing. The argument even more concrete that Mike Wagner is just as good as Troy Polamalu, if not better. We don't ever hear the guy's name. He started his career in Latrobe, PA with the Steelers as a wide receiver and goes on to be arguably the greatest safety on the Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl, 4-time Super Bowl championship teams. I mean, this story is amazing. This is amazing. It's an amazing story. He comes out of pure obscurity. Only the Pittsburgh Steelers could find a player with the drive and desire like Mike Wagner. This is an amazing story. Wagner is currently a defensive backs coach at Pine Richland High School in Gibsonia, Pennsylvania. He was interviewed for the NFL Films documentary series America's Game, the Super Bowl champion of the 1975 Pittsburgh Steelers. What a story. What an amazing story this is. Mike Wagner should be in the Hall of Fame. It's not even a question. You want to downgrade his ability, his stats, his performance because he was on a legendary defense? Troy Polamalu was on a legendary defense. Ronnie Lott's on a legendary defense. I'm not going to mention any Baltimore Ravens, but you know who I'm referring to. I mean, this is one of my favorite stories ever out of any Steeler player. This is literally what the equivalent to what Tom Brady was on offense, a 7th round pick. Mike Wagner is the equivalent to that on defense. Shows up. Nobody has a clue who he is. He's lined up at wide receiver. Oh, no, we're going to switch you to defensive back. Goes on to have a Hall of Fame career, 4 Super Bowl rings, played outstanding in all of those Super Bowls, and he should be an NFL Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about it. Don't just look at this video and say, oh, no way in hell he's better than Troy Polamalu. You can't just say that. You can't just say Troy Polamalu is head and shoulders better than Mike Wagner. That's a lie. That's an absolute lie. I want to see the comment section, what you have to say about my argument for Mike Wagner being in the Hall of Fame and possibly being better than Troy Polamalu. I can't wait to see the comment section.